So the monthly card has been revealed, and we're certainly going to talk about it like normal, but after I'm done going over the card and how I feel about it, I kind of want to address some of the negative feedback that the card has been getting as of late. So first and foremost, the card. Chaurus Breeding Pit. It's a 10 cost action in agility, and it summons a Chaurus Reaper in each lane. Now, many people thought this card was going to be a class specific or a multi-attribute card because our last one was, and in the past our monthly cards have kind of followed a pattern. I'm personally happy that it was not following a pattern, because then that means that each month we don't know necessarily what to expect. I kind of like the unpredictability of it, so I'm actually happy that it was not a class specific card. Now, the card itself, it does some things that I think are overlooked. So it is an action, so it's going to have natural action synergies. For example, Chanter of Akatosh will summon a Manticora if you're running it with this card, right? Likely playing some sort of monk control with Chanter. This is another way beyond just Nest of Vipers to summon a Manticora, which is kind of nice. But for me, this card is more about just stats and bodies. So I say that because you're paying 10 for a 10-8 in stats just right out of the gate, and it has the potential, depending on how full the opponent side of the board is, to get you up to like +8/+8 in stats. Now the plus is actually in the form of a minus on the other side of the field, but really we're just talking about raw stat manipulation. In many ways, this is almost like a balanced Supreme Atromancer, if you will. It's just a high-cost card that's meant to give you stats on the board. Now, you don't get the burst damage, and it's not spread across 3 creatures, and it's not 9, it's 10, and yada yada yada, right? Like, this is not Supreme Atromancer, but it has that feel, at least to me. One of the interesting things about this card, though, is that it's one of the very few cards in the game that will affect an entire opposing player's board. Fireball does it, Odahviing does it, but most other things are very lane specific, and this will hit the entire board because with a Reaper hitting each lane, you're giving -1/-1 to everything. -1/-1 is not a ton, and at that stage of the game, you're lucky if it kills anything, so I wouldn't really think about this as hard removal. I would think of this more as potentially a top-end card in like a mid-range deck that's meant for taking advantage of trades and so forth, because oftentimes one stat either way, right? You know, a +1/+1 or a -1/-1, that's often enough to really turn trades to be favorable. That's why Divine Fervor was so big for the longest time. Now granted, that's perpetual changes and so forth, but I kind of get that same feeling from this card. Now, it's true that this also sets up finish-off effects, but I don't think that's nearly as relevant because most of those finish-off effects are likely to have been played prior to this. Even, you know, Reaver, for example, at an 8-drop, he's likely, hopefully, already getting you value before this card comes online. Again, for me, this is more of a you know, you're giving yourself a bunch of raw stats. Hopefully you have some sort of board presence prior to playing this, so you play it, you get your favorable trades, and it's that thing that kind of pushes you over the edge in establishing board control. Now, all of that stuff being said, here's the truth. There are enough good late game drops in this game that I don't see this seeing a ton of play, if at all, competitively. I actually really like it in Arena, and I put the caveat out there that most of my Arena games are done well before turn 10. I play it really aggressive. I would probably not pick this card, but if I was drafting something that was already late game leaning and this was presented, I might consider it, because it's really hard to deal with in an Arena deck, but I'm usually trying to close my games out before turn 10. But I still think that this is, say, better than Manticora for Arena, personally. So maybe Arena, maybe some gimmicky decks as well. It's a powerhouse if you play the creatureless format for fun, but in terms of like competitive play, I think that the strength of the other 8, 9, 10, even 11 and 12 drops are just going to outweigh the strength of this card as of right now. Now I say as of right now because I do see a potential future where this card could be played. If we see more cards like Spider Daedra that don't have the huge drawback, something like this that would quickly sweep out a bunch of, X1 creatures could be a big deal. If we see effects that let us replay actions from the grave, so we have cards like Folkreath Defiler, right, that let us replay a creature, which was our first foray into targeted discard pile mechanics. If we have something similar but with actions, this card could end up being significantly better. So it kind of depends on what else is printed, but I don't think that this card is a complete waste of time. And I want to use that to bridge this video to my next point, or the next topic. So this card has been getting a lot, and I mean a lot, of really negative feedback and backlash in most of the community places that I visit, and I don't really understand why. In fact, most of the people are saying it's an unimaginative card design, which I'm gonna be honest, gang, I almost find personally offensive on a number of different levels. So first, not every card is going to be something that's radically complex. Not every card is going to be something that has never been done before. Not every card is going to be competitively viable. Not every card is going to be good now, but could be good in the future. And even with all those caveats, I'd just like to say that, this card... Let's take a look at some of our other monthly reward cards, right? So I don't understand why this card is getting the heat that it has, far more than any monthly card I ever remember, despite the fact that I think that this one is still, being that it affects an entire enemy board, being that it gives you the equivalent of 2 7-cost cards for the low price of 10 and only taking up 1 slot. This card is just getting a lot of negative heat. And I don't remember any monthly card previous to this one getting this kind of treatment, despite the fact that, in my opinion, many of the other monthly cards were far less imaginative. So we get gems like Mechanical Ally. Sweet, a lot of people were looking for more Dweimers. I don't blame them. Some people like to play that. I'm not judging them. But if we're talking about originality here, this is literally doing the same thing as 5 other cards that already existed. Right? It's not really bending the realms of possibility here. Elsewhere Lookout, right? Because having a Khajiit that grows when it pilfers is totally a new and innovative thing that's certainly never been done before. I'm really glad that we got another one of those. That being said, I don't even remember this card getting as much heat as the new Chaurus card did. In fact, all I remember about Elsewhere Lookout was people going, "Hooray, Khajiit tits!" Great. Ballereve of Dusk. Okay, sweet. We didn't have a lot of stuff that was necessarily rewarding keyword play. I get it. And I looked this up to be 100% certain, because I thought it was, but I wanted to double check before I did the video. We got Ballereve of Dusk in the attribute that has the least number of keywords on creatures, period. That's true. Intelligence has less keywords than any, yeah, that's right, any of the other attributes. I verified, and that's even counting Word Crafter as having Ward. I gave it some slack. Doesn't even matter. Just has less keywords than anything else. So we should totally give that one, that attribute, something that buffs stuff based on keywords. That is the beacon of, innovative, riveting design. And we should totally be more accepting of that card than we are of Chaurus Breeding Pit. Let's be honest, gang, right? Sower of Revenge. I gotta say it. It's a 5/5 guard that does 5 damage when it dies. It's not exactly riveting. It's not doing anything new. It doesn't even, like, the fact that it has guard doesn't mean that it fits, like, well into other aggressive strategies. Like, that alone just feels weird. It wasn't helping any archetypes to flourish. Like, I know you're gonna say, like, well, yeah, but, like, it helps mid-range warrior, and it certainly can potentially help orcs, but it wasn't an orc itself, right? It's just a new Daedra. It's literally just stats on a stick. The only reason that that card isn't being you know, outright called unimaginative is because it's competitively playable. And so I'd like to stress this, just for the record, gang, that competitively viable is not the same as imaginative design. It's just not. Don't kid yourself. A 1-cost 10/10 with 0 negative drawbacks isn't exactly imaginative design either. It's competitive. It'd be fucking great. Not imaginative. So just because you're not going to play this card doesn't mean that this is suddenly horrible or unimaginative. I just think that it's kind of rude to just honestly paint this with a broad brush because it's not for you. And so then I'm going to go to point 2 here, right? Which is kind of in the same vein of the whole competitive argument. Some people are upset because it doesn't do anything to shake up the meta. Yeah. Not fucking surprised. So if you look at the history of monthly cards, there are a lot more cards that didn't do anything to touch the meta than there are ones that did. Not every card is Histgrove. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, that's what they should do. That's what the monthly cards are for. Well, kind of. You see, most of these cards aren't exactly being made, like, right now, right? If I had to guess, now, I don't work for Direwolf, but if I had to guess, these are probably planned out at least 2 or 3 months in advance. When you make a card, right, you've got to, excuse me, come up with a concept for the card, then come up with the likely stats, likely using some sort of costing algorithm that they have, and then you've got to decide a theme for the card, because you can't just shoehorn anything in. It's got to fit somewhere into the lore, so decide things like race, class, where it should fit, and so forth. You've then, hopefully, I hope they do this, got to do at least some sort of quick short form testing to make sure that it's going to pass, you know, the sniff test. Then you have to have art made for it. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but most of the art in this game is actually pretty good. It's not the sort of thing that gets done like that. So they got to draw up some art. They've got to make either voiceovers for it, or they have to come up with sound effects for it. Like, those hissing sounds don't make themselves. The quality of sound in any of the Bethesda titles is usually pretty good, so I doubt they half-ass that. They have to have animations coded in, and I mean, I hope you're kind of getting the point here, right? Like, these things aren't drawn up overnight. If I remember right, like, the art for Cicero got data mined like 5 months before the fall of the Dark Brotherhood. I know, because I used the art in a custom card video I made. So, again, this stuff doesn't just appear. And the idea that they're going to use the monthly cards to go, okay, this is the way the meta is, let's introduce this one here to shake things up. Like, I hate to be the Debbie Downer guys, but that's just not what it's gonna be for. They can't predict the meta 3 or 4 months out. And if they can, then that means that they shoehorned their design philosophies onto us, and I'd be more pissed about that. So the fact that it doesn't shake up the meta, again, shouldn't be a surprise, and it doesn't mean you need to be a big Debbie fucking Downer over it. So that's where I'm at with that. I think we should have some proper expectations for what these monthly cards are going to be going forward. It's great when we do get a card that shakes things up. It's great when we get a card that supplements an existing strategy or makes something else new and viable. I love it. But if you're expecting that every month, you need to lower your expectations. I love this game. I love Direwolf. I think they do a fine job in terms of design. I'm not saying that they're all fucking amazing hits, because I was very critical of Heroic Rebirth. Speaking of unimaginative design, that's literally a card that just makes one card into other cards that already exist, but at random. So, yeah, I think that Direwolf does a great job. I don't want this to be a criticism of them, because other cards are less imaginative, then this one isn't a mark against them. I honestly think that the real hallmark of good design is when you take themes and mechanics and things that are familiar to people, but then you just either reshape them or reuse them, but in a new or different way, so that it's got just a little bit more depth, but enough familiarity that it's not like overly complex. You're not asking new players to pick up anything like crazy or new. Like, in all honesty, that's where real good design shines. Not every card is going to be like a fucking self-discovery. You're not going to have like an epiphany about the game every time something gets printed. So anyway, that's just my own heated opinions about the card. I very rarely get so like riled up like this. As you know, I'm usually very calm. I usually go out of my way to be overly positive, and so this is a little bit out of the norm for me, but I just, as somebody who's like passionate about card design or just game design as a whole, that's why I do the Forge videos. It kind of gets under my skin when you know, people kind of blanket statement things like unimaginative for design when they're not, and in my opinion, putting it in the right context. So is this card like, holy shit, Amazeballs the best designed card I've ever seen? No, but it's by far not the most unimaginative monthly card we've seen. It's not even the least playable monthly card that we've ever seen. So the fact that it's being like kind of shit on, I don't know, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. So again, I think that it's probably not going to see competitive play, but not every card does. Not every card is Hisgrove. Not every card is Sower of Revenge, and we just kind of have to accept that. So thanks for listening to the rant. For all the people that I may or may not have just offended, if that is the case, I'm sorry. It's not my intent, but I do welcome healthy debate, and I like to speak my mind, and yeah, that's where we're at. So till the next time, may bright moons shine your path. I love you guys. I'll see ya.